In a world filled with evil, many heroes answer the call. And when it's time to fight for truth and justice, they all have their own distinct battle cry. The Avengers, assemble. The Teen Titans, go. But
We're Vox Machina! We fuck shit up!
this is the legend of Vox Machina.
Greetings, fanboys and fangirls, I'm Erod and I'm the Blockbuster Buster, and it's been a long time since I've been this obsessed with an animated series. Hell, the last one was Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes back in 2010. Oh, and by the way, fun fact, Legend of Vox Machina showrunner Brandon Auman wrote and directed many episodes of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Coincidence? I think not. Now, before I get going, two quick disclaimers. Number 1. As you may have deduced from the intro of this video, The Legend of Vox Machina is an adult animated series. It has a little bit of nudity, a fair amount of gore, and lots of curse words.
Eat a fucking sandwich!
So if you're sensitive to any of that, or if you just don't like things that are awesome, you might want to skip this one. And secondly, I will be talking about Season 1 at length. So if you haven't seen it yet, you might want to hop over to Prime Video and check it out. You've been warned. Anywho, we live in a time in which, sadly, voice actors are undervalued, underpaid, and underappreciated. Most recently, cases like Colleen O'Shaughnessy's name being left off of the Sonic 2 poster, and Hulu looking to replace John DiMaggio in their Futurama revival to avoid giving the guy a raise, made headlines, and were eventually rectified. But more often than not, the very talented men and women who voice our favorite cartoon characters are treated like the red-headed stepchildren of the entertainment world. So I cannot express just how refreshing it is for The Legend of Vox Machina to be a show that was created, produced, and co-written by voice actors. So let's hope that it stands as a beacon of change. Now, I often say that the only thing more fascinating than a good story is the story behind the story. And this claim couldn't apply more to this show. So without further ado,
The legend of Vox Machina.
the origin of Vox Machina begins way back in 2012, when voice actor Liam O'Brien requested to play a game of Dungeons & Dragons for his birthday during an episode of his podcast, All Work, No Play, which he hosts with his best friend and fellow voice actor, Sam Riegel, who by the way is not a D&D fan, but a good friend, so he went along with it nonetheless. Liam contacted fellow voice actor and D&D aficionado Matt Mercer to help make his birthday game happen. Matt recruited two more voice actors / D&D experts, Marisha Ray and Taliesin Jaffe, to help mediate the game. And then at the party they were joined by three more voice actors who were also D&D virgins: Laura Bailey, Travis Willingham, and Ashley Johnson. And when these 8 magnificent misfits got together, magic happened. And on that night, Vox Machina was born. Actually, originally they were called the Super High Intensity Team, but they changed it to Vox Machina, as it is Latin for voice machine, a clever reference to the fact that all the players are voiceover actors. Personally, I think the reinvention from shit to Vox Machina was a good change. And thus, the group enjoyed themselves so much that night that they agreed to meet on a weekly basis and continue their D&D campaign, which went on for the next few years, to the point that this infamous ongoing D&D game played by nerdy voice actors gained a cult status. And then, in 2015, Felicia Day approached the group with the idea of live streaming the game on her Geek and Sundry Twitch channel. They reluctantly agreed, and so Critical Role was born, one of the most successful ongoing web series of all time. A success which led to the group to gain their own Twitch and YouTube channels, do live performances, and collaborate with Dark Horse to publish their own comic. In 2019, our merry band of tabletop gamers launched a Kickstarter campaign to try and raise money to produce a 30-minute Vox Machina animated special. They intended to raise $750,000 across 45 days. However, by the end of the 45 days, they raised over $11 million. Holy shit. I just want to say that in a day and age of toxic assholes bullying studios into giving them the Snyder Cut and redesigning Sonic the Hedgehog, this is very refreshing, and I tip my hat to all the critters out there. Suffice it to say, the cast of Critical Role now had the budget to produce an entire season of The Legend of Vox Machina independently. And if that wasn't good enough, Amazon Studios picked them up as a series. And the rest, as they say, is history.
The plot.
Yes, The Legend of Vox Machina is an adaptation, but not of a comic, novel, or movie, but a D&D campaign. Now, if you don't know what that is, and you're unfamiliar with the terminology and references that I'm using in this video, dude, Dungeons & Dragons has been around since the 70s, so I highly suggest you Google it, and turn in your geek card while you're at it. For now, the premise of The Legend of Vox Machina is as follows. In a mythical land filled with swords and sorcery, the threats are escalating, and worthy heroes are at an all-time low. Thus, the Kingdom of Tal'Dorei turned to an amateur and highly unorthodox group of mercenaries called Vox Machina to be their new protectors. In spite of their lack of experience and professionalism, Vox Machina's methods are strangely effective, and more often than not does the fate of the world end up in their very reluctant hands. So, basically, imagine a show with the authenticity of Lord of the Rings, but with the Guardians of the Galaxy as its main protagonist. And you have a close approximation of what The Legend of Vox Machina is like.
Fan out. Look for some kind of fulcrum.
Wait, a fuck room?
I mean, that's what I heard.
Character design and animation.
The designs for the characters in this show are exquisite, which shouldn't be a surprise as they were designed by none other than Phil Baruzza, the man responsible for the look of many of the DC characters in the animated films, as well as Greg Weisman's Young Justice. While Phil makes the characters blend seamlessly into this medieval fantasy world, the designs also work well with the comedic moments of the show, so when the show transitions from one tone to the other, it never feels out of place.
What the hell are you doing, Scanlan?
Thinking of a rhyme for dead dragon? Cause I guess we're killing one.
The animation was handled by the legendary Titmouse Incorporated, and I have to say, this show represents some of their best work, as they have effectively brought the world of Vox Machina to life, not only capturing the magic and wonder of Critical Role's first campaign, but recreating their signature humor as well. The sprinkles on the proverbial sundae are the amazing, mind-blowing action sequences they have put together for this show. Brutal but memorable, driving the story all the while still being entertaining. Firmly establishing that while this show may not be afraid to make fun of itself, it can kick ass when it wants to. So the question is, how do you want to do this?
Cast and characters.
First and foremost, there is no voice work without a voice director, and this show has one of the absolute best ones in the business, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who somehow, someway makes actors who are already great even greater. And of course, I have to give props to all the amazing guest stars. So many big names attached to the inaugural season of this show that it's insane. David Tennant, Gina Torres, Dominic Monaghan, Stephen Root, Felicia Day, Stephanie Beatrice, Kelly Hu, Carrie Payton, and the list goes on and on. Now let's talk about one of the principal players of this ever-expanding franchise, the mastermind behind the campaign that this show is based on, the DM to end all DMs, the man with the magnificent mane, Matthew Mercer. Matt's primary character this season is one of the two big bads, Lord Silas Briarwood, a suave, sexy, brutal vampire who lives to make his wife happy, as any good husband should. Like in the initial campaign, Matt voices a lot of the NPCs, including a few hilarious cameos in the same vein as Stan Lee in the Marvel movies.
Come here, fuckstick!
But he didn't feel comfortable taking on all of those roles himself, delegating some of them to other worthy performers. The two big standouts are Sean Gilmore of Gilmore's Glorious Goods, played by Sumil Malhotra. Gilmore is like Q and Giles and the old man in the cave from The Legend of Zelda all rolled into one, but more fabulous.
Perhaps some advice for a tiny fee?
Hopefully what you're offering isn't
too tiny?
I suppose size isn't everything.
The other big standout is the second big bad for the season, Lady Delilah Briarwood, played by the glamorous, gorgeous goddess of Gab herself, Grey Griffin. In the tradition of good animated shows like Batman the Animated Series and Avatar The Last Airbender, Delilah Briarwood is essentially a sympathetic villain, one whose origins and motivations are easy to understand and relate to. In her case, she's just trying to save her husband's life. Silas was dying. Medicine and science proved ineffective, so Delilah turned to dark magic, namely necromancy, the manipulation of the dead. And in her pursuits, she struck a deal with a dark entity called the Whispered One, who brought Silas back to life as a vampire. A sexy, smooth vampire, but a vampire. And in return for granting her husband's life, the Whispered One wants Delilah to perform a ritual that will bring him back to the realm of the living, which could potentially spell doom for the entire world. But Delilah doesn't care, as long as she has her hubby back. Oh, by the way, here's a fun fact. Silas and Delilah's designs are based on Travis Willingham and Laura Bailey. And on that note, let's talk about the main cast. Cause even if you strip away all of this show's amazing attributes, at its core, what truly makes the show great is its 7 titular characters. So let's address them, starting with
Vexalia Visar, played by Laura Bailey. Laura Bailey.
The half-elf ranger, markswoman, and unofficial leader of Vox Machina. In the initial campaign, Laura wanted to play as a rogue, but Liam O'Brien beat her to it. So, as a compromise, they decided to play as twin siblings, as the two of them share the same birthday, but this way the two characters can share traits while still playing as different classes. But the one thing that Vex has that Vax and the rest of Vox Machina doesn't is Trinket. Trinket is awesome. Hashtag more Trinket in Season 2. Now, if Vox Machina is a dysfunctional family, Vex is the no-nonsense mom, there to be stern when the team falls out of line, and to provide inspiration and encouragement when needed.
Darling, you've got this.
Vaxeldan Visar, played by Liam O'Brien.
He is the half-elf rogue, thief, and escape artist of this motley crew. Liam created his character in conjunction with Laura Bailey. The two allegedly had a 3-hour dinner in which they brainstormed the details and backstory of Vex and Vax. Because Liam only intended to play Vax on his birthday, he just wanted to play as a fun character that had the least amount of responsibility. However, when the campaign became ongoing, Vax evolved accordingly. But that is a topic for a future video. For now, all you need to know is that Vax is the member of Vox Machina who doesn't have to pretend to be cool. He just is.
All it takes is a little finesse.
Keyleth of the Arashari, played by Marisha Ray.
The elven druid with a mastery over the forces of nature. In essence, Keyleth is the heart of Vox Machina. Interestingly enough, Marisha Ray didn't actually play as a character the day Campaign 1 started. She was just there to help the other players and keep the game going. When she eventually joined the game, she didn't actually have time to create a backstory for Keyleth, so she purposely made her introverted to justify not giving away too many details about her origin. So Keyleth's backstory and personality developed organically as Campaign 1 of Critical Role progressed. In reality, Keyleth is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, member of Vox Machina. Unfortunately, her worst enemy is herself, as her self-doubt and lack of confidence get in the way of her reaching her true potential.
Kiki! Where did that come from?
I'm not really sure.
Grog Strongjaw, played by Travis Willingham.
The Goliath barbarian and backbone of the team. The only thing he likes more than ale is to rage. Liam O'Brien's birthday was the first time Travis played D&D, so he purposely chose a character that was strong but very dumb to justify his ignorance of the game.
Doom? We don't know the meaning of the word.
Well, I certainly don't.
The irony of this is that Travis is one of the most skilled players in the group, especially when it comes to battles, and Grog has grown to become one of the warmest and comforting characters in the franchise, something that is exemplified through his beautiful friendship with Pike. The big guy's intelligence might be a level 6, but his heart is a level 20.
Hey, everyone, I'm...
I missed you so much!
Pike Tripfoot, played by Ashley Johnson.
The gnome cleric and the conscience of the team.
We can't just run away.
This is why I hate traveling with holy people.
Ashley was the last player to join the original game, so she agreed to be a cleric because it was the only role that was left. She chose to be a gnome because she thought it'd be funny. Little did she know that Pike would end up being one of the most valuable members of the team and one of the most powerful. As a busy working actor, Ashley was noticeably absent during the first few episodes of the live stream. Hence, the reason Pike leaves Vox Machina early in the season. Later, Ashley would participate via Skype, with her presence being explained as Pike having the ability to astral project. This, of course, is also referenced in the show.
Pike, you're glowing and kinda buzzing. Are you dead?
Astral projection.
Your ass what?
So, if Vex is the mom of the group, Pike is the cool aunt. She can provide sage-like advice, but not without occasionally encouraging small increments of debauchery.
Think of all the ale I could buy.
Buddy, we could be drunk for weeks.
Days even.
And while we're on the subject of debauchery,
Scanlan Shorthalt, played by Sam Riegel.
the gnome bard, jester, and trickster of the group, there to provide levity when things get too grim. Back when Sam and Liam first discussed their upcoming one-night-only D&D game on their podcast, All Work No Play, Sam asked what was the worst character to play as. Liam said, a gnome. So Sam agreed to play as a gnome as a complete and total joke. Furthermore, he chose to be a bard based on his extensive background in musical theater. Little did he know that Scanlan would go on to be one of the most popular characters in both Critical Role and The Legend of Vox Machina. Now, while I love all 7 of the main characters in this show, if, and only if, I absolutely, positively have to choose a favorite, I would have to go with Scanlan. He's a promiscuous smartass who can create energy hands by playing heavy metal on a lute. Come on, that is awesome! My favorite episode of Season 1 is Scambo, because it has everything that's great about Scanlan in one episode.
Oh, wait, please, please.
And I was going to do a top 10 favorite Season 1 moments, but after rewatching Season 1, I came to the conclusion that my favorite moments are every time Scanlan sings. So here's one that's close to my heart. Fastball Special, Vox Machina style.
The legend's back. Oh, yes, he's back. Hop on, I'll give you a ride. Get ready to fly.
Percy Wait, that's not his full name. Hold on. From the top. Percival Frederickstein von Musel Glazowski the Rolo III, played by Taliesin Jaffe. Holy shit, this guy has a long name.
The human gunslinger and brains of these mischievous mercenaries. Interestingly enough, Taliesin did not play as Percy during the first game, since he was one of the few experienced players he chose to play as a dragonborn paladin, to keep the rest of the players alive and help them understand how to play. It wasn't until the game became ongoing that Taliesin started playing as Percy, who was based on an old script that Taliesin had written but never produced. Basically, Percy is a prince who lost his kingdom, a displaced socialite no longer accepted by the aristocracy, and taken in by a classless band of misfits with whom the only thing he has in common is the fact that they are all broken people who have experienced loss.
We're all with you, but no more secrets.
Casting a stark contrast when compared to his companions, an educated man of class and refinement who embraces technology instead of magic. But it is Percy's thirst for knowledge that leads into the main storyline for this season.
The Briarwood.
As I explained before, this show is based on the first campaign on Critical Role, which is over 500 hours long. So the creators had plenty to choose from for their first storyline. It was agreed that for their first animated foray, Vox Machina would deal with the Briarwood arc, which sees a ragtag band of anti-heroes try to stop the Briarwoods from bringing forth the Whispered One, all the while unearthing Percy's dark past in the process. You see, in order for Silas and Delilah to perform the dark ritual that will bring forth the Whispered One, they need a ziggurat, or a temple, that is located under the estate of Percy's family. So the Briarwoods launch a coup and murder most of the Derolos, leaving only Percy and his sister alive, believing they are the only two smart enough to know where to locate the ziggurat. After many days of torture, Percy escapes, swearing revenge on the Briarwoods, but his dark desires soon pave way to deadly inspiration as Percy invents the first gun, the Pepper Box, an instrument of destruction that will give him the power to smite his enemies and get justice for his slain family. But little does he know that his dark pursuits opened his soul to a vengeance demon named Orthax, who feeds on the souls of everyone Percy kills, becoming stronger every time, and possessing the vengeful gentleman more and more, until one day there will be no more of Percy left. So, will Vox Machina be able to save his soul, or will Orthax's influence lead Percy to show them no mercy?
How about you, Percy? What's the worst monster you've ever faced?
They're in Whitestone, and we'll all be facing them soon.
While it would have been nice to have Percy remain mysterious for another season or two and create more of a build-up to revealing his origin, I am glad that this is the first arc right out of the gate, as it fits in with the themes of the season, which are teamwork and self-worth. Vox Machina are a bunch of disparate individuals who don't fit in anywhere. And the member who represents this theme the most is Percy, who doesn't even fit in with Vox Machina. Throughout the season, our heroes are always tripping over each other and failing every time they try to act as individuals, only to eventually find success when they actually work together or simply trust each other. Percy is the least likely member to agree to this ongoing cooperation, as he is not only harboring a private vendetta, but also feels unworthy of his new family, as he failed to save his previous one under the most sinister of circumstances. And he's not the only one doubting his self-worth. You see this to Keyleth as well, and Pike. Some fans theorize that Orthax isn't even real, and that he is just a delusion that Percy uses to justify his vengeance, and keep any potential friends or loved ones at arm's length. Whichever the case might be, Vox Machina will never be whole until Percy the Rolo conquers his demon.
You shot me!
Yes. Well, thank you for not dying.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Final verdict.
In spite of me not being a hardcore D&D fan, or an avid viewer of Critical Role, I always intended to watch this show, because I am a massive fan of its 8 primary cast members, and their work in animation. Words cannot express how proud I was to learn of their successful Kickstarter campaign, and gaining the opportunity to produce their own animated show, starring characters that they created. What I was not prepared for was for how freaking good this show turned out, and to think that all of this was born from a group of nerdy people trying to do something nice for their friend on his birthday. And if that doesn't capture the spirit of this show, I don't know what does. No ranking! That's right, I don't rank a show until it reaches its end, and The Legend of Vox Machina Season 2 is being produced as we speak. I can't wait to see what the mischievous mercenaries do next. Now, Season 1 did drop a lot of hints that the next story arc will focus on Vex and Vax. And if that's the case, hey, I love the Rogue and the Ranger, so that's perfectly fine with me. In the long run, I hope this show runs long enough to cover everyone's backstory, and that when it ends, it does so on its own terms. For now, I encourage all of you to gather your own party, drink, curse, mix it up, and when appropriate, fuck shit up.
The adventure begins. They were always beside you, your nerdy best friends, and the DM to guide you, and they rise from the flames for the